as a food additive. I was the only one, except interestingly enough for the Chinese chairman, to argue against food additives that have aluminium, or aluminum as the Americans say, in them. Believe it or not, everyone else didn't say a peep. No one else said a peep at the meeting. They thought it was fine. And this is a huge problem as well. Then in the Netherlands, in Rotterdam, earlier this year, the Netherlands is the host country for the Codex Committee on contaminants in food. And by the way, these two committees used to be one, and the Netherlands was the host country, but China didn't have a committee, and it desperately wanted one, so they split the two apart, and it got food additives, and the Netherlands retained the contaminants in food. But interestingly enough, one of the working groups that we did not attend, but we will and have started attending, on melamine, which is chaired by the Canadian delegate, and again, in this meeting, it's a different Canadian delegate than the one in Canada. In any event, they wanted to set a level for melamine contaminants in food at what we consider to be a really high level. So we were, again, the only ones to speak out saying there should be, this level should be 0. Now remember, for those of you, or maybe for those of you who don't know, melamine is the contaminant in food that was added, deliberately added, by Chinese manufacturers to dog food and cat food, and it killed a large number of dogs and cats in Canada and the United States before it was withdrawn from the market. Why did they add it? Because it's a real cheap filler material, but when you test it, when you test the food product, whatever it's been added to, it bumps up to a high degree the protein content. So it looks like it has high protein content. But the fact of the matter is it kills animals, and later they actually added it also to infant baby formula. Large numbers of babies got sick, a few died, but that was it. So here it's deliberately added, and they want to give a safe level to it, which I thought was ridiculous. If it's deliberately added, it should be 0. You know, if it's in there, then no more in the food. So that's what we're pushing for at the Codex meeting, and I hope and feel that we will be successful. We'll see. The unfortunate thing is, and this is a cartoon that that was drawn for us at NHF some years ago, is a lot of, and the example is the vitamin manufacturers. A lot of the vitamin manufacturers, the big ones, see this as a good thing, these Codex guidelines. And why is that? Because there was a law that was passed in the United States 15 years ago, which I'll get into a little bit later, called the Dietary Supplement Health and Education Act of 1994, which is called DSHEA. And there's some sensible people leaving. DSHEA was intended to remove the arbitrary powers of the FDA. You know, before 1994, the FDA can just go in and say, well, I don't like the way you part your hair, and so we're going to remove your product from the market. Or you've added vitamin B1 and B2 together, that makes it a food additive, so we're going to remove that from the market and you're out of business. So what DSHEA did is it added a lot of protection for the vitamin companies and for the consumer, giving a lot more freedom by removing the arbitrary powers of the FDA. The point being that after that, they unleashed such creativity and such innovation in the United States that now you have about 1,000 new supplement products coming out each and every year with new forms and new ways, better absorbed and the like. But the big vitamin companies, they didn't foresee this. They supported DSHEA's passage in 1994. Now all of a sudden, 15 years later, they're seeing these small companies, these medium-sized companies coming up, rising up. Oh, what do? Hey, run to the government. Remember, you run to the government for protection from your market competition. So this is what you have with Codex guidelines. What Ian was showing, these Me Too vitamins that won't help you, they would love to sell what I call Fred Flintstone vitamins, you know, those little chewable vitamins for your children. Fred Flintstone vitamins for the kids by the bushelsfuls across international lines, and that's fine. So they'll accept the Codex guidelines based on science, but we already know what their science is. It's not science at all. And they don't realize they're going to be gobbled up by the Codex guideline monster. Now, at the recent Dusseldorf meeting, this was just the first week of this month, I'll give you straight from the horse's mouth a report from there, but not the whole meeting. It lasted all week long. I went to the working group meeting the week prior. It was held in this building, the Kunstpalast. As I said in an article, I said this is where every art is revered except that of gastronomy. So that's, and the inside part, there's the way it looks. It's a little bit narrower meeting hall. And this was the working group time on Halloween set. You would look to see what the amount is, not what the percent is. But most consumers would look at 100%. They go, while they're eating their McDonald's hamburger, their Big Mac, they go, hey, I'm getting 100% of the vitamin C that I need. They don't look at the 60 milligrams. They don't realize when they go outside to smoke a cigarette, that one cigarette will destroy 60 milligrams and they'll be at ground zero. But they go 100%, I'm doing pretty well. And they look at the magnesium, they'll see 300 milligrams. Gosh, I'm getting 75%, say. That's not bad. So I don't have to worry about the rest. I can go have cakes and cookies and my Coca-Cola, and you know, I've got all my bases covered. But the fact of the matter is that in this document that they were proposing and that they submitted and that no one was objecting to, and it's important for me to tell you another thing, and I forgot to tell you this, but I should. Every document like this moves through an 8-step process. So it starts at step 1, and it progresses to step 8, which is the final adoption by the Codex Commission itself. Now, this document was at step 2, going on to 3, and as it moves up the chain, it gets progressively harder to change it. You know, by step 6, you'll only be able to change a few words. Maybe not add in a thing. By step 7, it's almost locked in stone. So here it was at step 2, so it's very important to do something now. So Costa Rica, the countries get to speak before the INGO, so I always have to wait for the countries to speak first. And Costa Rica spoke up and it said, well, we don't really like that vitamin A has been reduced from 800 micrograms down to 550 micrograms. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And then they stop talking. And a lot of times that's what they do, and then nothing happens. And my philosophy at these meetings is you have to be persistent. My philosophy at any meeting is you have to be persistent. And so then no one else was going to talk, so it would have moved on to step 3. I guarantee you from my experience at Codex, it would not have been stopped. And I'm off because I probably leaned against something. I thought I might just run. Did you get a break? The bionic man. Okay. The pacemaker, yeah. Don't do this at home. Okay. Thank you. Can you hear me now? Okay. So, all right. So, all right. So where was I? Oh, yeah. So it's going to move on. And so I pushed my little button, and so my light was flashing. They're very high-tech in Germany. And I said, this is ridiculous. These numbers, you're lowering vitamin C from 60 milligrams to 45 milligrams, so 100% would be 45. You're lowering magnesium from 300 to 240. That's more important than even calcium. You're lowering niacin from 18 milligrams down to 15. This is insane. And the back page of the document, which I'm sorry to say I don't have a copy up there, has fluoride being kept at a very high level, 3.5, not moving it down. So I said, because I knew this would get to the chairman, I said, very deliberately, I said, you know, this is going to make a laughing stock of Codex when you see these numbers. This, because he's so concerned about the public image of Codex. I said, everyone will be laughing. It'll be a public relations nightmare, I said, for Codex if this goes through. So I planted that seed in his mind, and then I proceeded to say, you know, and give examples of why this wasn't right. Well, then after I finished speaking, the Australian delegate spoke up and she said, well, these are numbers that come from the FAO-WHO. Get the cross out, wave it around, everyone will fall down on their knees and bow to God. FAO-WHO, she said the magic words. So a lot of people went along with that, a lot of delegations. And she said, besides, her words exactly, they provide an extra degree of comfort to make sure people aren't being harmed by these nutrients. Because they could be harmed if they took too many of these high-dose supplements, you know. So anyway, so I got the floor next. In fact, over the course of almost an hour, I took the floor speaking about 10 times, maybe even more. I'm not sure. I didn't keep exact count, but at least 10 times. So it went back and forth. Believe it or not, the Iraqi delegate spoke up on our behalf and it was his first meeting, so he didn't make it very clearly, but he still spoke out in our defense. But otherwise, it was me against all these other countries. And then the chairman was getting a little bit exasperated because it was taking up a lot of time, and he wanted to move it forward. And it's his last committee meeting, by the way. He's retiring as chairman, or he's retired. And so I was still making these arguments and exasperating him. He was so frustrated. He said, why don't we just hold this document back? And then some other countries like Australia spoke up and said, no, we can't do that. We need to move it forward. And then I said, no, it's an excellent idea on the part of the chairman. Let's hold it back. And then it was hovering on the knife's edge. And then, bless their hearts, the Indian delegate spoke up and said, we support NHF. We think it ought to be held back. And that's all it took for the chairman. He banged his fist down or whatever he did. He said, we're holding it back. That's it. Next item. So we won. We got it held back. And ridiculous, thank you very much, this ridiculous document that would have had people believing when they picked up a product that they were getting 100% of their needs by taking 45 milligrams of vitamin C, which is absurd. So we have a year. The next meeting will be in Chile. And we're going to be prepared. We're meeting with the Indian and Chinese delegates also who didn't speak out. But I saw in the written paperwork, they should have spoken out, but they supported higher levels, not lower. So we'll be working with a lot of these countries to defeat this. Now, Codex puts out their own publications. These are two examples of what they put out. And they are very concerned about the public image. But they also, like many other outfits, they do have their strategic plan. And in it, this is their latest version, the one for the years 2008 to 2013. And in it, there are a lot of people who say, oh, Codex is only going to apply internationally. It will never apply domestically. Well, this is garbage. There are countries in the world right now that are adopting Codex standards and guidelines even before Codex adopts them because they're so eager to get them. So what we have is in this document, and again, I don't expect you to read it, although it's pretty big up there, but in it, the Codex people themselves tell you they intend to apply it domestically. In their strategic vision statement, they say, and I won't read the whole thing, but they say, to this end, the Commission will develop internationally agreed standards and related texts for use in domestic regulation, there you go, and international trade in food. And they don't just say it once, they say it many times. There's another page, I won't bother to read from it, but it essentially says the same thing. They will apply it domestically. It will be adopted domestically. So what we have is a case where the European Union is actually, the European Union Food Supplements Directive is mirrored upon, or if you want to look at it the other way, the Codex guidelines are mirrored upon the Food Supplements Directive of the European Union. Now that has already taken effect, certainly in Belgium. Of course, they have an ending date of December 31, 2009, but who waits till the last minute to implement things when you have profits at stake? So most of the companies have already complied with this